Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Middleborough School Committee's last meeting in May. As we have been doing, if anyone has any public comment, they can put them in the chat and we will deal with it. The first item on the agenda tonight, to give people time to do that, is a report from our student representative, Natalia Parkinson. So Natalia, welcome. And you're all dressed up tonight, Natalia.
In my uniform. Yeah, thank you.
No problem, thank you.
For this week's update for the MEC, things are winding down at the MEC. They have begun their spring activities, including picnics, chicks and ducks hatching, caterpillars turning into butterflies, and field day. The kids have been so happy to take their masks off at recess and PE. They are also interviewing, the MEC is interviewing and hiring for positions that they know are going to be open next year, and there's a lot of conversation about what the fall is going to look like. For MKG is finishing up their in-person math MCAS this week and will begin grade 5 science as well as the remote testing for grades 3 to 5 next week. They are excited that they are having a fun day of outside activities for each grade level. Teachers will be sending out information regarding the dates. They are also excited that their remote friends will also have the opportunity to join all grades for those outside activities. Additional information regarding permission slips will be sent out by each remote teacher. For Nichols Middle School, the NMS softball team finished up their season with a 10-1 record and are the Massasoit League champions. The NMS baseball team finished the season with a 10-1 record as well and clinched the North Division last week, and the Tigers sit on top of the league and are just waiting to see how Somerset's final game ends. Congratulations to all of our young athletes on their great season. The students finished their first round of MCAS testing this week, and we are proud of their efforts. Next week, students will take on the math MCAS exam. The end of the year field day events are being finalized and more information is to come. And finally, for MHS, congratulations to the music department for putting on their amazing spring concerts. For the class of 2022, 2023, and 2024, class officer nominations will begin next Tuesday, June 1st. More information for nomination forms will come out on Tuesday. MCAS testing will continue next Tuesday and Wednesday, June 1st and 2nd. Biology MCAS will occur on June 7th and June 8th for 9th graders only. Registration to become a Start Strong orientation leader has opened. Check your emails for the online application. And finally, the class of 2022 is having a senior step-up celebration on Saturday, June 12th from 6 to 9 p.m.
Thank you, Natalia. Does anyone have any questions for Natalia? Natalia, thank you very, very much. We appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you.
You have a great night. Next up on the agenda is school committee members. Does anyone have anything they wish to report? Teresa, go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a shout out to our class of 2021. A huge thank you to Mr. Brannigan and your entire staff. Obviously, you all know I'm a proud mom, but this is an amazing class. They've certainly been through a lot this year, but I want to congratulate each and every one of them, and certainly looking forward to all the activities which started tonight, and we'll go into the next week, finishing off with graduation on June 5th. So congratulations to you all.
Thank you. Anyway, Mr. Oakley, go right ahead.
Sure. Just wanted to piggyback on what Teresa said, but also a huge shout out to Sandra Tellish, who's coordinating the senior baskets or Adopt a Senior thing this year, which I understand Ms. Farley had a lot to do with before she had a senior this year. I really enjoyed taking part in it. My wife and I did, putting together a basket. I think it's an awesome way to connect with the graduating class. And just wanted to shout her out and say congratulations to all those that are graduating.
Thank you, Mr. Oakley. Anybody else? Mr. Stevens, go right ahead, my friend.
So I did see my youngest daughter played in the spring concert last night, and I will say that the auditorium was fantastic, and the kids did a great job. I mean, they really worked hard. You could tell they worked hard, and it was a very nice show. So everything worked great.
Thank you, everybody. The one thing I wanted to mention was I wanted to send a thank you to Cut Right Firewood and Landscaping Materials. They've donated a lot of material to the schools to sort of spring up and get ready for the summer. So I want to thank them for flowers and everything like that. I know we usually get donations for graduation and senior week, and so I'll check with Paul and have that at the next meeting. But I do want to take the time and thank Cut Right Firewood and Landscaping Materials on Abbey Lane for everything they did. They did a lot for us, so I do like to recognize them. So thank you. With that, seeing no one else, I will move on. And next item is Superintendent's Report. Brian, go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, members of the committee. It's had some beautiful weather recently, and it's nice for students to get out. And that's the first item of my report, is the fact that we have allowed students, in accordance with the governor's proclamation, we've allowed students outside for recess and PE activities to take off their masks. And you heard some reports from principals saying the students are really enjoying it. I actually had an opportunity to speak with Paul Burton from WBZ TV and did a little quick interview with him one day about the fact that these kids are really excited about taking off the masks. I wish and sometimes I hope that we will be able to do that inside in the future, but the governor's regulations still require that we have face coverings will continue to be required for both vaccinated and unvaccinated individuals at all times. Inside K-12 public schools, collaboratives, approved special education schools. So masking continues to be a requirement inside schools. This is from the governor. This is from the governor's office based on the health metrics produced by him. We do not do the research here in Middleborough. We take the research from the best folks that the governor puts together on his health study committee and the DEAS health study committee. So that's where our decisions are made in terms of guidance. School committee did make a policy based on that guidance. It went through the policy subcommittee and then went to the committee. So we are moving on the guidance from the governor's office, who has studied the research with I believe the American School of Pediatrics, but there is all types of research online with the Department of Elementary Ed and the governor with regard to the metrics, the health metrics that they had used. So I know that there are folks out there that continue to be upset about masks and thinking that we should open it up in schools. There are doctors. I saw a doctor on the TV the other day that talked about the fact that we should start to be opening up schools. The commissioner has said that we're looking at possibly next year masking too. So I'm not sure exactly where that guidance is going to come from and what that looks like for next year. But at least for the time being, even when May 29th comes around, this weekend, and everything opens up, schools will still be required to have masking. So that's basically the COVID-19 update with regard to that. I'm happy to say that kids are unmasking outside and enjoying that. I've enjoyed being able to unmask outside a little bit, having been fully vaccinated, et cetera. So again, realize that there are folks out there that disagree with this decision, but it's guidance that's provided by the governor and required by the governor and the Department of Elementary Ed. That's the latest on face coverings. I don't know if you want to touch base on that, Mr. Young, Mr. Chair?
No, I just want to give people a chance to, members to say something. I know a couple do, but I just, again, want to point out that we have checked with our attorney. I sent that to all the committee members. I have checked with Mass Association of School Committees. This is not something the school committee has any authority to do whatsoever. This is a guidance. This is a requirement of the state, and we have to do that, much the same way as we don't have a choice in certain things, like MCAS, having MCAS this year, as we've gone over. Now, there are things that we are given pieces to do and guidance to do with, as Ms. Farley pointed out to me earlier, which is the idea of proms and things like that. We've done everything that we possibly can do to open up what we can. There are pieces that we cannot open up. So that's, I'm just laying it out for people so that people understand. people can think that we can do a variety of things that we cannot do. And so I just want to lay that out. Does anyone else want to say anything? Ms. Farley, go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I certainly understand the frustrations. I'm a parent of 3, and as I have stated, I will do everything I can for all the students in Middleborough, speaking first for my own children, and then, attempting to do anything I can for all students. I am very proud of what Middleborough has done this year. I believe that as a team, we have really put our kids first in every possible way, and I'm very proud of that. But I do understand the frustration, because I'm honestly just as frustrated. And I do think that as a team, somehow we need to find a way to speak up for those who would like choice. And I don't know what that looks like. I don't know how we do it, but I do believe that all parents have a right to be heard, and that if they want to choose something, then we should be fighting for that. So I'm going to personally look into how we go about it. I don't know. I'm just kind of speaking, from the heart a little bit right now, because I understand the frustrations. I feel them. We're going into a kind of a hot next few weeks, and I get it. It's hard. So putting the balance there, understanding that we are restricted, we cannot take these mandates away, but moving forward, how do we support those families who want choice? So that's where I'm at with this.
Thank you, Teresa. Appreciate it. Anybody else want to say anything? Mr. Oakley, go right ahead.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I also completely understand people's frustrations, and I'm sure I share a lot of people's excitement at the recent updates to the policies where kids are allowed to take off their masks outside, and it just does feel like we're one step closer to putting this whole nightmare behind us, and that's an awesome and an exciting thing. But I also just wanted to say, as obviously just one individual and one member of this committee, that I think the science is pretty clear that the current strategy of masking and distancing for those that can't yet be vaccinated is a good one. And there's a bunch of publications you could choose from to back that up. I'm choosing the MIT scientist Bazant et al. In the Proceedings of the National Academy of Science, April 27, 2021. I know people say masks don't work because the coronavirus particle is too small, and that's documented in Zhu et al., New England Journal of Medicine, February 20th, 2020. But scientists do know that the virus particles travel on respiratory droplets that are much bigger, that masks can actually affect, and that's Lednicki et al., International Journal of Infectious Diseases, November 2020. These droplets can vary in size, and they can travel further or less far depending on how big they are, and there's publications about that as well. And so for me, the research about how effective masks are, I feel, is settled. And obviously I'm just one person, and I have my own personal standards for what will prove that to me. My standards are based on peer-reviewed science. However, when you look at the Mass Department of Public Health data right now, and I just did this last week to confirm for myself, children ages 0 to 19 are still the largest number of cases of COVID-19 in Mass. And I think when I took the data right off the Mass Department of Public Health's archive site, put it into Excel and plotted the curve, you can tell that that group, 0 to 19 years old, is lagging behind all other groups in the drop that we've been seeing, and which I think is related to vaccinations. So if I'm piecing these things together, masks, I believe, are effective. Kids are still the largest number group in Massachusetts that are affected by COVID-19. And there's data out of Sweden per Ludvigsen et al., November 2020, and Buonseno et al., April 2021, out of Italy, that show that kids can actually have persistent symptoms up to 6 months out, even with asymptomatic cases of COVID, which to me makes me nervous in young developing kids. So me personally, one member of this committee, I feel like the science that I just listed is pretty clear, and I am comfortable continuing our practices until such time as the governor and DESE relaxes these policies in response to increasing vaccination rates. But I do believe that the chair and the district lawyer is correct based on what I saw, that we don't actually have the ability to overturn these things. So I just wanted to explain to you all kind of my stance on this, and where I'm coming from in the specific journals and articles that I use to reference this, so that you can please feel free to poke holes in my logic, but that's where I came up with this opinion. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Oakley. Zeke, I saw your hand up, so I want to call on you.
Yep, just one quick thing. Yeah, I will hate wearing a mask when I go back to college full time in the fall. BSU, I'm pretty sure, is still mandating a mask, but that might be subject to change. But I would do anything to keep my friends safe. And if wearing a mask is what I have to do, then I would do it in a heartbeat. And I feel like most students would share that opinion.
Go right. Thanks, Zeke. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say I wear a mask all day. I'm in the public schools. My kids wear masks all day. I have kids that go to Middleborough schools. I have two that are going to be going to Middleborough schools. And, you know, it's something that everybody has to deal with if you're in a school system. And we have to think of all the moving parts. It's not just one kid, 5 kids. It's not just kids. It's teachers. It's administration. It's janitors. It's cafeteria workers, bus paraprofessionals. There's a lot of moving parts to a school system. So we have to take the needs of the many, and we have to think of all the people that are in our district that we serve. And so we kind of have to balance that out. And I understand that some people are uncomfortable and they're not happy with that. But in reality, we're talking about 15 days, 14 days, whatever it may be. It's 2 weeks. I get that it's hot. I get that it's not fun. I hate wearing a mask all day, every day, but I have to do it. I mean, everybody does at this point. So I think we just kind of have to wait for that guidance and see what they're telling us to do, and then we can move forward from there.
Anybody else? Okay, I'm going to move on. And like I said, unfortunately, we don't have the power to change that. As Ms. Farley said, if you want to do things to do that, that's fine. I would start with the Department of Ed. They're the ones who made the mask policy and carried it over through the governor's office. So that's where it is right now. And again, sorry, we were told that, and Brian, you can correct me if that, DESE is supposed to come out with their beginning guidance sometime in June, I believe, for next year. So we'll have a better understanding of what guidance looks like for September.
That's correct.
And then we'll go from there.
That's correct.
So I'll turn it back over to you, Brian. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move on to school choice. As you know, you've seen some numbers and some projected enrollments. We're able to get a little better idea right now with regard to kindergarten and 8th grade moving to 9th grade. So hopefully maybe tonight we can make some decisions on some recommendations that I'll forward to you. In looking at our school choice numbers that we've had, the current prediction for the high school freshman class is right around 220 to 225 students, based on the numbers we have of students who are going to be attending BP and maybe making other choices with regard to high school. So that number is down from that projected enrollment on the original sheet you had from 241 to about 220, 225. The kindergarten class, as of a couple of weeks ago, was 184 registrations. We usually end up with 20 or so over the summer, give or take 20, 25. That would put us at just slightly over 204 students. This year we had 207. 2019, 2020, we had 233, and the prior year we had 204. So we've averaged right around 210 or so. A couple of years we've had larger years, and that happens every year with the birth rate, et cetera, and people that move in. So those numbers, we are fairly confident moving forward will be slightly north of 200, about 210 based on our predictions and based on patterns in the past. Currently, as you may know, in terms of school choice, we have 39 projected for next year. That is not counting any kindergarten students we would add. Our revolving account with school choice is a healthy account. We pay for next year, as the budget subcommittee can attest to, we'll be paying about $265,000 in salaries with that school choice money. So that school choice money goes a long way to helping out the district. In fact, the person that's going to be in charge of the MyLab, the maker space, the innovation space at the new high school, that position is going to be funded out of that school choice account. So the school choice is a valuable budgetary tool. It is something that offsets some of the students that we have that go out to other schools, and it's a very popular program. We have people constantly calling about getting on the school choice list, and each year we have openings and we announce them and we fill the spaces. Are there any questions based on that number right now or the specifics of those numbers? I would also I wanted to mention the fact that our high school was originally scheduled to open at less than 700 students. We argued, we went to bat, we went to meet with the MSBA, and they expanded us to about 720, and plus they put buildable space in there for class size of an additional 15%. So our high school approximately is about an 828 student high school. And I sent a note out to Christy Murphy tonight just to get the exact number there. Right now at our high school, we have 870 projected for next year, even based with the numbers that we have, is just about 848, 849. The students in the high school right now are comfortable, but we have 135 or 130 students that are still out and remote. That 849 includes numbers of projected homeschool students that may come back and join us. So the high school we've had traditionally about 20 students at the high school. We voted. We projected right now to have 13 for next year, and we may want to add some to that or not. That's up to you. I'm going down in order here, down to Nichols Middle School. We had voted for about 20. And then we have about 10 in there projected for next year. I'd recommend no more than 15, and adding 5 if you so desire. Then this is a vote by the committee. MKG, their numbers are a little bit higher than HPB, so we called complex choice, and most of the students have gone to the HPB. That number we had at 20. And next year, we predicted there are 16 current school choice students, so we'd only be adding 4 or 5 there. At the MEC, we've done this each year, where we've always taken in 3 or 4 or 5. That money offsets in the operational budget the fact that we have an ESP in every single classroom. So the class size might be 20, but there's 2 full-time adults in that room all the time. So my recommendations to you this evening, and I'll go now from K-up, would be plus or minus no more than 5 at the MEC. We've gone as high as 4 in the past, not as high as 5. Stick with the 4, that's fine too. With regard to the complex, I'd say you cap it at 20, recommended. We could definitely fit another 4 kids in there at the complex. At the Nichols Middle School, I would say you really don't go over 15. We have an 8th grade class that would probably stay away from because it's the largest class that's coming through the current grades, and we want to keep those class sizes down given social distancing. And looking at next year for the high school, I'd say right now we're scheduled to have 13. I would go no more than 20. Paul's has always liked the flexibility of a student who wants to stay in the high school, who is going to move out of town or has moved out of town and would like to finish at the high school. We've always given him that sort of number of 5 or so, that he has that flexibility. So we'd open up potentially for 6 or 7 at the high school, but that's the choice of the committee. So I will leave it up to you, Mr. Chair, and the committee to debate and ask any further questions you have with regard to the numbers based on basically the demographics that I have at this point.
Brian, can you go over those numbers one more time?
Okay, I would say at the Early Childhood Center, we're projecting an enrollment of about 210 students, and I would go no more than 5. I would say at the complex, we have currently 13 school choice. We have 16 school choice students projected for next year that are already enrolled if they don't go back to their attending schools. I'd say no more than 20, so would add 4. I cap that number at 20. At Nichols Middle School, we currently have 10. I would really go no more than 15 and keep it at grade 6 and 7, away from grade 8. And at the high school, they have 13. We really go no more than 20 to allow for about 7 to give us some cap space there and some room.
So again, the complex is 5, MEC is 5, complex is 20, Nichols is 15, and the high school is at 20. For purposes of discussion, does somebody want to make a motion?
Sure, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion for purposes of discussion that we accept the recommended numbers presented by the superintendent for school choice.
Do I hear a second? Just for
Second.
purposes of discussion. Discussion now. Teresa, go right ahead.
Just simply that, Brian, you know the logistics. You and your team have clearly put a lot of work into this. I am not comfortable enough to say that I could disagree with what your recommendations are. So I would be more than willing to accept what you have come up with as a team and go with that.
Any other comments? Seeing none, the other thing I just want to mention is this has been an ongoing topic for the last couple of months. We approved choice itself. We wanted to nail down the numbers, and obviously wanted to nail them as close to the end of the school year as we could, so that we are really working with the right numbers. And with that, I'll ask for a vote. Ms. Farley.
Aye.
Mr. Oakley.
Aye.
Mr. Stevens.
Aye.
Ms. Janess.
Aye.
Mr. Lewis.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. It's unanimous. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There was a question regarding school choice I saw in the chat about people talking about pulling their kids out of school will cost the schools, understanding how taxes work. The school choice is something that if you as a parent want to send your child to another public school in the Commonwealth, you can choose to do so if they accept school choice students. If they do, we are deducted a certain amount of money that comes out of the town budget. But that's why when I first took this job back in 2015, I had a discussion with the school committee about adopting school choice to try to offset, because we had about, I think, 35 students going out of district at that point for school choice, and it was important to offset those numbers. We've now offset those numbers and gone the other way. So we do bring in money to the district. We were losing money from the district prior to that by not adopting school choice. So now we are bringing in money. So there is a financial impact on the town when students take students out to another school, a public school. And it does have an impact. It's not the cost of educating a student, which is about $14,000 or so. It's just closer to about $5,000, $6,000 per student. So that's just an explanation of that comment that was made in the chat. So moving on to high school senior activities, and I know that it was mentioned in opening remarks, and I appreciate Teresa, Ms. Farley, for mentioning that. It is the senior barbecue is tonight. Their last day was yesterday, their last day of school, and all senior projects and reports were due by 2 p.m. yesterday. Their barbecue and their distribution of their yearbook is tonight, and they have a memory night tonight from 6 to 8:30 on the grounds of the new high school. We have a senior mystery ride scheduled for tomorrow evening from 8:30 a.m. to 10 p.m. That's quite a mystery ride. Memorial Day holiday is a day off for students, obviously. And then next Tuesday starts senior week activities with a senior breakfast in the morning. The senior prom is held outside at Granite Links, and that is senior only event. And that is something that we didn't think we'd be able to do prior to the last changes in the governor's orders. Wednesday night, we have June 2nd, we have a scholarship night. This is by invitation only for those students who are receiving upwards of about $200,000, which is granted by this community, which is just a marvelous outpouring of money for scholarships, and is so important. Thursday, a senior last assembly graduation rehearsal, and that's in the evening. and the students are in their cap and gowns for that. And then Friday, June 4th is graduation rehearsal. They have a senior walk that we've done traditionally. This is going to take on a little bit of a different piece here where we're able to, I think, move the schools outside so the students can walk by their classroom teachers and the students can whoop it up a little bit outside without masks on. And then we have a senior parade with the permission of the Middleborough Police Department on Saturday morning. And then we have students report in cap and gowns, and graduation is at 6 p.m. Weather permitting at the outdoor facility, the stadium at Middleborough High School. So very, very busy week for a bunch of excited seniors, deserving seniors, as Ms. Farley said. They've been through a lot. They've been through 14 months of COVID, and they've lived through and they've survived through, and they've come out on the other side. And I think that it's good that some of these things are opening up, that they're able to have the traditional ceremonies that the last year's class really couldn't do as well. They actually did them, and we were able to make those things happen. But this year's class is opening up even more, and it's refreshing, and I just think it's great. So, any questions on senior last week? Senior.
Meg, go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to say thank you to all the administration and all the secretaries. I know they do a ton of work with graduation and just getting this week so that the kids could actually do something. It's so nice. I'm looking forward to going to the parade, and I'm excited to hear about the walk and all that. So I'm really, really grateful that the kids are able to do all that stuff this year. So I just want to thank all of them.
Awesome. Any other comments from any school committee members? Okay. You heard from Natalie what her report that MCAS is certainly in full swing this week with all schools participating, and it'll be wrapped up hopefully very shortly. It has gone well. The computer piece is we're still figuring some of that information out. Students who are taking it online, and we'll continue to do that. But the in-school portion has gone well. I know my daughter in 6th grade has taken the MCAS and a couple of the exams, and she's excited about it, I guess, and as much as you can be. She likes a good challenge, and the MCAS is always a challenge. So another something that was talked about a great deal in this community and others. It is something, again, that has come from on high. It has come from the federal government. Last year, we did not do the MCAS testing because the state appealed to the federal government, and we were allowed not to do it. But we were told by the federal government that would not be the case this year. And Massachusetts did not apply for a waiver. So our students are taking the MCAS. And, we've had students more than usual are absent, et cetera. And certainly we understand those things, and not a lot we can do about that. So MCAS testing will move on and keeps going on, and hopefully the results will be something that we can use somehow. But if nothing else, it's an accountability piece at the state level that is necessary, according to the Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed and the Governor's Council. So any questions on MCAS testing? Okay, seeing none. The 2021-2022 school calendar, we're looking at a final vote this evening. I did not receive any input personally from any parent out there. I'm not sure if school committee members did.
The only thing I saw was there were a couple people who mentioned they were away the last week in August, first week in September. So I did see that particular piece. But again, there were a few. As we've seen in the past, there are people who have a wide variety of times with vacations for whatever reason. And, they make vacations. That's all. That's the only thing I've really seen. Anybody else? Teresa?
That was pretty much the same. I think some of the frustration was, didn't we try this a few years ago? Why are we trying it again? I sort of assumed that we tried it, it didn't work, and we made our vacation based on what we've done in the past, which I get. But again, as Rich stated, there are vacations that are taken at any given point, and people could make a vacation for the last week in June, and then we have 5 snow days or whatever that looks like, and you end up missing the last few days of school. So I think it comes down to what we're comfortable with as a district, and we have to take the June 19th into consideration now at the end of the year on that end. and you're already looking at late in June. So for me, I'd rather just get started and finish when we finish in June of next year.
Mr. Oakley, go right ahead.
Sure. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. The feedback I got, or the question I got rather, was in regards to the first day of Rosh Hashanah. And the question really was just, is it just this year because of where it falls in the calendar, or will this be a change that will adopt going forward?
Rich, to be honest with you, I don't know that. I mean, we can cross that bridge when we come to it. I looked upon it more from the comment that I saw before that resonated with me and made sense to me was this, that if those holidays were the first days of school, then kids were missing out on that opportunity, right? And we would know that going in. I mean, I don't necessarily have problems. I mean, I think different districts, depending on, for lack of better terms, things that happen in their district, obviously have picked a variety of holidays. For example, last year we did not have a holiday day on Good Friday. We lost a considerable amount of staff, so that's why we put it back in. I also think it depends on the numbers. So I know school districts that constantly add different holidays in because they know they're going to miss quite a few kids, and so it doesn't make sense to them. So I'd be willing and open to having that discussion. It just made sense for me personally based on the idea of it being how school start, if school started that way.
All right. Yep. Thank you very much.
No problem. Other questions or comments? Seeing none, then the chair will entertain a motion to approve the school calendar for next year.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Discussion. Hearing none. Ms. Farley?
Aye.
Mr. Oakley?
Aye.
Mr. Stevens?
Aye.
Mr. Lewis?
Aye.
Ms. Janess?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. So thank you, everybody. I will say this. I just want to point out one thing to everybody. We try to get this done prior to December each year as best we can, given the fact that we've had to change a wide variety of calendars at different times this year. It just didn't make sense to do and confuse people about what was getting voted and what wasn't. And so we did it that way. So thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'll continue planning for summer programs. We have advertised a summer splash program to faculty and staff to see if we can get some interest in starting up a program to sort of engage students over the summer, especially at the elementary level. And we're not getting a lot of interest in it right now. I'm going to sit down at some point tomorrow and talk with Dr. Gates about where we stand with the numbers of people that have indicated they'd like to teach classes with this program. But right now, we're not getting a lot of interest on the part of the faculty to do some summer work. We've incentivized it a little bit, raised the pay a little bit, and still really not a lot of interest in it. So we're going to have to evaluate this on our ability to do it. We have, through Sarah Hickey, has indicated to the state that we'd like to get a matching grant, and we've been enrolled in that program, but we have to have a program, obviously, to get a match. And at this point, we're not. The middle school will do a credit recovery program, aka summer school, and the high school will do the same. And I know that the high school is trying to get creative with some other programs in the summer that are TBA. So we continue to look at possibilities for the summer, but we can't have programs without educators. And if educators aren't willing to step up, then it's going to be difficult it's impossible to run a program. So we're going to try. I would tell you that the Champions program is running. They have about 46 or 48 students registered for the summer. That's a comprehensive program with STEM activities, et cetera, a childcare program really, but it's very involved. So they are open for the summer. They're through the end of June through the end of August. So Champions program is running and will run. So that's my update on summer programs, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Anything else with the superintendent's report, Brian?
That's it this evening, sir.
Okay, so I just want to end the superintendent's report because it was in there. I do want to make a couple of things before we leave this portion and move on to MSBA. One is this: somebody had asked about in-person meetings. We discussed this last time. We will have in-person meetings. The point now is to find space in the schools that is not being utilized, because space is being utilized for a variety of things in schools and not the way they were supposed to. So as long as I can find space, I can do what we had talked about before, which is allow the technology to make sure that we can run the online meetings at the same time and do it that way. We will. My hope is that we do it in June. My sense is it'll probably be no later than the last meeting in June, because that's after school. I hope we'll see if we can do it the first meeting in June. So again, and I also, because space is being used during the day, I don't want to tie up custodians at night to have to re-clean for what we're there, depending on. The second thing is, again, I keep seeing it in the piece about the masking policy. We can't change that. But what we will do is whatever the state decides and however it goes, we can have a separate meeting just on the masking policy as we move forward and when we move towards next year. So we'll do that. With that, I'll move on to the MSBA report. So I don't think we have anything updated for that piece, other than, because we haven't had a meeting yet, Brian, since our last meeting. So anyone questions about the high school at all? Other than I would say that there is, the demolition cam is up, watching the demolition of the old high school. So you can watch that online. And Teresa, go right ahead.
Mr. Lynch or Mr. Chair, could you address for parents concern that the demolition is happening while students are in the building, in the new building? I know that when I was there a few days ago, Mr. Brannigan had mentioned that the fire department has been on scene every day, that they actually requested to be on site every day during that time. So I was comfortable with that, but I think it's important for parents to hear that all safety precautions are being taken, and if there's anything other than fire department being there, if maybe you could just sort of address that. And you may have planned to. I apologize if
Sure.
I jumped the gun, but.
Yep, I can start with that, Mr. Chair.
Go right ahead, Brian.
As part of the contract for the demolition company, they go through an abatement of any hazardous materials in the building first, which they've done. And now they're going through their process of destruction. We do, as part of the contract, we have firefighters there all day long while the workers are there. We also have a couple of water dispensing devices, one being a massive sort of water blower. It's like almost like a hurricane, and it just blows on the building constantly to keep any dust down. And there's also a worker with the fire hose who's constantly hosing whatever the crane is whacking or hitting to knock over. And then at night, they cover up any materials so the wind is not affected and doesn't blow the dust around. But that is, it's a safe, as far as we know, from what we've been told, these are the safety enhancements that were necessary to take a building down. Well, it's right next to the other building. I know in Stoughton they did the same thing. I believe they had the same company, and it is something that has been a practice for a great deal. I can certainly get more details, Ms. Farley, with regard to other safety precautions that are in place with this company. But I know that any hazardous materials have been abated or have been abated in the section of the building they're taking down anyways, which is the classroom section. And then they move on through the rest of the building. It's a large company with a lot of workers, and this is what they do. So, and it's all subject to OSHA. It's all subject to EPA. It's all subject to inspection, and they're watched carefully. So that's where they're at.
Thank you, Mr. Lynch.
And just to add to that, Teresa, one more thing is, as Brian said, there's 2 firefighters on duty. they have the ability to stop anything that they deem to be unsafe. And that's part of it. That was part of the contract too. The firefighters being on duty and making sure what's going on and watching. So that's been the plan from the beginning.
And through you, Mr. Chair, they did notice that there were a few windows that were open at the high school, and they went in and they asked them to close all the windows. Because there's an air conditioning system and there's a chiller system. So they asked them to close all the windows because they just, even with the water being sprayed, and they just didn't want any dust going into the building. So.
And I would remind everybody too that the Mass Building Committee does site visits for both the new and the demolition of the high school. The state does site visits for the demolition of the old high school, and the town does site visits through their building departments to the demolition of the old high school. So there's really 3 levels that they have to consistently go through in addition to our on-site safety people. So I wanted to mention that too. I do want to go back to one thing, unless anyone has any other building piece. Seeing no one, somebody had asked about the half days during the calendar schedule. The half days are professional development days that are required under the terms of the contract. So we have those half days in order to meet the contract for the half day of professional development.
And Mr. Chair, we have reduced those from 12
Yes.
in the past to 6.
So yeah. Just wanted to remind people about the MASC convention. The other piece, did everybody, the chart, the course just came out yesterday. I know, Teresa, you had said you hadn't attended before, and Zeke, that's the one you can attend. Did you get an email, Zeke, about that particular piece? I'll forward it to both of you to make sure that you know about it. That's fine. The other piece is part of the convention. There's a nominating form for a wide variety of things. One of the nominations is, for lack of better terms, and I don't have it in front of me, so I can't give you the exact name, but it's sort of a champion of the schools. And what that's about is a private citizen who's done a lot of work for the schools through a wide variety of things. And after I thought about it and read it, I would like to make a motion that we nominate Rob DeRogers as a champion of the schools for all the work that he's done, and especially in leading the building committee for building the new high school. Both Brian and I know the countless hours that Rob has worked for us, and not just about the new high school, but about any project. He is always there to help us and make sure that things are done correctly. And Rob's been fantastic. So I think it would be nice if we did that, and I'll sort of take the unusual step of making it in the form of a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Oakley, go right ahead.
Mr. Chair, I think that sounds awesome. And from everything I've heard about the effort that Mr. DeRosa has put in and all of his expertise and his time, sounds like he's very much deserving. And I look forward to voting for him. I just wanted to ask if we know of any like runners up that other folks on the committee might want to nominate. But just throwing the question out there so we don't leave anyone out.
No, just so you know, typically the committee nominates one person for those particular pieces. To be honest with you, typically the committee's never nominated anybody. It just made sense to me, given where we're at in the project and how long Rob's been doing it, that we do that. I would also mention to the committee that also in there is you can apply to be on a wide variety of Mass Association of School Committee subcommittees. There's state relations, federal relations. There's parts with the MIAA. There's a school committee member who serves on each sporting event for the MIAA that's appointed by the Mass Association of School Committees. So I would look through that and take a discussion about that. But any other questions about nominating Rob? Seeing none, we'll take a vote. Ms. Farley?
Aye.
Mr. Oakley?
Aye.
Mr. Stevens?
Aye.
Mr. Lewis?
Aye.
Ms. Janess?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. So thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate that piece. Chair will entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda.
So moved.
Do I hear a second? Just so everyone knows, the consent agenda, I believe tonight is just warrant articles, maybe 1 minute, right? 1 minute. Any discussion on that? Hearing none. Ms. Farley?
Aye.
Mr. Oakley?
Aye.
Mr. Stevens?
Aye.
Mr. Lewis?
Aye.
Ms. Janess?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. We voted on school choice seats. We voted on the 21-22 calendar. We did also receive a donation from Shoe Pile Prints from Middleborough High School. Brian, do you know what that's for?
It is from, I believe, the company that collects the clothing boxes.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. I can never remember who's who. With that, does anyone have anything? Oh, Ms. Farley, go right ahead.
Sorry. I don't believe this was ever actually stated at school committee, so I just wanted to make sure that people are aware that a few parents from the senior class, myself included, but a few others were a big part of it. We did a fundraiser for the senior class, and we actually, the total amount raised was $1,500. So we're pretty excited about that. So thank you to Judy Cochran and Heidi Latender and Cindy Strong, a few people who really helped me get that done and passed out and all of it. So we just figured the class could use a little boost since they weren't really able to do a lot of fundraising this year towards their senior activities, and it was a great success. So we're happy.
And through you, Mr. Chair, Ms. Farley had the Adopt a Senior program that she started last year, which was carried on this year that I know Mr. Oakley mentioned. I just want to give credit to Ms. Farley for starting that, and maybe the credit for the last year's class for starting the senior parade, because apparently that's something that's going to be in the cards now for each year.
There are some good things to come, right?
If the Middleborough Police agree with it.
Yeah.
Mr. Oakley, go right ahead.
Mr. Chair, just hearing about the things that Mrs. Farley has started up, I wonder if we could reopen the vote for a nomination for Champion of the Schools Award. She certainly deserves an awful lot of credit for all the work she's done to start up these things, though, and I really appreciate it.
She does, but unfortunately, you can't nominate a school committee member. That's one of the rules. So with that, anything else before we adjourn tonight's meeting? Seeing that, I will I'll take a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
So moved.
I have
Second.
so moved in a second. Ms. Farley,
Aye.
Mr. Oakley,
Aye.
Mr. Lewis, I'm going out of order here. Mr. Stevens,
Aye.
Ms. Janess,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Thank you very much, everybody. We'll see you back in June. Have a great day.